I think that the Jungians generally think that consciousness came from pain, okay, and that we come to consciousnus through pain. You know, just beginning with Adler, and of course, interestingly, in that paragraph, because he refers to Adler, is that Adler himself was one of the chief editors of the collected works in English, and also of the letters, both volumes, which I put in the Dropbox so that you can take a look at them. But so, you know, although Jung wanted to be between Eros and Phobos, he obviously, you know, somehow Adler grokked Jung. You know, and I presume it was the other way around too. They had a mutual admiration society. Any other thoughts about this? And we're talking about integrating the shadow now. That was the original question that came from John 3 weeks ago. But let's keep in mind it's not just one. It's not just one opposite. Okay, there are millions of opposites. We, as a alchemical vase, and this is where alchemy comes into Dr. Jung's work. Everything is a alchemical cauldron. Okay, the witch's brew, and so we as human beings are. But this class is such a cauldron also, and so is any association, any state, any nation. They're all different cauldrons, and each one has got lots of things that are put into it to make a whole. And you know, I think we're all holding our breath to see what we are as a nation after November 8th. I don't know.
My point was that in opposing one group, whole class of people against another class of people like Wagner did, exactly what Jung started out in the book talking about was the cause of World War I.
Yes.
So Wagner was not a whole person. He was not an integrated person in that sense. So I
nor are any of us in that.
Oh, very good, very good.
Okay.
Well, I guess he was more integrated than Nietzsche was, and is what his point.
Well, and you know, I mean, Dr. Jung does lots of talking about Nietzsche because he spent 86 lectures in the last 5 years of the 30s talking only about Thus Spake Zarathustra in his lectures, and it was his conclusion that Nietzsche was crazy, and indeed Nietzsche did die in an insane asylum, and so Nietzsche was at some level psychotic. Okay, I can't speak to Wagner, but I certainly don't deny that the Nazis used Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries and other things as archetypal music to whip up the German populace. Obviously they did. But I don't know enough about Wagner, and I don't remember enough about.
Well, they also used Haydn because.
But I just want to say to all of you that I've definitely been enriched by having this group, and so all of my interactions with various members of the group have helped me in my thinking, and as I'm trying to write about contemporary events, using Dr. Jung as a jumping off place. There was an interesting synchronicity that I was telling Marianne about, which was that I published an article on Saturday, I think, and I did put it in my articles on the Dropbox, and the very next day a Jungian analyst came and referred to the same paragraph, and she was talking about divorcing the feminine and how troubled she is by her practice where girls are coming to her and wanting to disavow their femininity. And it's quite a dramatic article that she wrote. Oh my God. But by synchronicity, it happened to be the same paragraph that I sent to you, then I used it in an article, and then she used it in an article in the same 24-hour periods. Going back to Man and His Symbols, one of the things that, you know, last week I was probably foolishly thinking that we could finish up with chapter 1 today. Maybe we can and maybe we can't. I doubt that. But I'm not pressed to finish. I mean, when I read this book, and I read it in this version the first time, it took me a year to read it. I kept it by my bed, and I read it 3 or 4 pages a night. I read it aloud to my wife and me as we were lying in bed before we went to sleep. And after a year of doing that, I felt like I had had a year of therapy. Okay, this was in 1990 that occurred. And so, but I find that I bounce off this version. Okay, and this is the only version that's been around lately. And so if I say any, as those of you who know something about neuro-linguistic programming know, if I say any word, it will anchor to words in your vocabulary. So if I say boat or yacht, you know, some of you will think of a sailfish or a laser, and some of you will think of the King of Saudi Arabia's 450-foot yacht. And so all of us have different things that we associate with every word in the language. Okay, and so free association can take you anywhere, but it doesn't necessarily help you from a psychological point of view. And so Dr. Jung's perspective was the opposite of that, which was to come back to the dream itself, and to have the patient he was dealing with explain what the dream meant to them. And you know, one of the things that people often do is they buy books about what things mean in dreams. Okay, and so here's a terrific one of those. Okay, Book of Symbols, and it is put together by many Jungian analysts, and they've put the associations that they come up with for practically everything. So I'm going to read to you one, and then I'm going to tell you a dream that I had the other night. The one is knee. Okay, so here's the picture. There's a picture of a knee, and there's a picture of a daughter sitting on a father's lap on his knee. And so it says, knee is the strongest joint in the body, the flexible hinge that allows us to sit on our heels as if on a pedestal, or to squat into the form of a self-made chair from which to parlay or paint or toss chapatis. Sturdy knees bear the brunt of our infant crawling. Scuffed knees are the medallions of childhood exuberance. At any age, we revert to the stable crawling posture of hands and knees because of injury, stealth, or confining spaces. Even before we have exercised our own knees, we know the knees that comprise the hinge of a supporting lap. The unusual image of King Akhenaten and the young woman, perhaps his queen or daughter, illustrates how intimately one lap fits into another, a nesting enabled by the articulation of the knees. But the ancients also classed the fluid in the knee with cerebrospinal fluid and considered it the sap of life, synonymous with offspring. Thus, knees were seen as the seat of paternity and generation, vitality, and strength. The Latin genius or genus, birth, is cognate with English knee, ibid. More than any other part of the body, we depend on the knees to raise or lower ourselves. Knees are the joints most at odds with gravity and the focal point of leverage and balance, helping to support the body and its burdens. The knees' connection with the life force is probably implicated in the symbolism of kneeling. We submit our own life force to something greater, or as a suppliant, appeal to the life soul of another whose knees we grasp. One genuflects or bends the knee before the numinous or sacred, or in obeisance to the powerful. Pilgrims crawl on their knees toward a holy shrine. The vanquished is reduced to his knees by the victor. We kneel to make declarations of love. Knees are also vulnerable. The kneecap or patella is a marvelous shield, but a sensitive one and subject to a great deal of wear and tear. Knee injuries are extremely painful. Gangsters are known to break knees as a warning, perhaps this time the life force, next time the life. At the opposite pole, knees secure the triangular lotus position of Buddhism and Hinduism, emblematic of axial balance, stability in sustaining the closed circuit of the energy field through which the subtle body centers of the chakras are vitalized. Okay, so you see, this is an extraordinarily detailed version of this symbol, the knee, and I'm not sure you can get much out of that. Now I'm going to tell you a dream I had, and see if you can tell me why I mentioned this. Okay, so the dream was, I'm in a parking lot, and there's a beautiful white limousine, and the central door is open. Oh, and I've been with a lot of my friends to a party, and I'm coming out of the party, and we come to this limousine, and we all pile in the limousine, and I look at the limousine, and there's like almost a throne in the middle of the limousine, and so then somebody says, well, where's Albert? And I look around, and there's a very, very dark corner of this parking lot. And over in that dark corner, there's Albert, and he's being taken away by Nazis. And he's being thrown into a big black truck. And it's got one of these tarps on it, the very ominous type. And I see his face, it lights up for a moment. It's a very fat face, and he looks out and he says, please don't let them take me. Okay, so where's the knee in that? That's it, that's the dream. Okay, well, I'll give you the answer. Okay, 2 weeks ago I found out that I'm going to need a knee replacement later this year, and Albert represents my left knee that is going to be taken. And of course, in dreams, every entity in the dream is a part of you. And so not only the characters jumping in the limousine, and I sort of thought of that as this group, in the sense that I'm very excited about the interactions we've been having in the group, and it all seems good and follow your bliss and all that sort of thing. But then there's this piece of me that's being taken away by the horrible Nazis and being thrown in the truck, and that's because I'm going to have part of my leg amputated, okay? Because that's literally what a knee replacement is. They literally are cutting off your leg and gluing it together again with a piece of something in the middle. So it's pretty.
You know, they bolted it together. I've had it done.
Oh, have you?
You'll survive.
Well, yeah, I hear I'll survive.
Men have less nerve endings in their knees than women do. That's a physical fact. You'll do better.
Well, I'm told that actually, and I have lots of lady friends in my bridge group who have had knee replacements, and they say, "Oh, it's wonderful." No,
It's tough.
it's tough. Yeah. Well, anyway, that was my dream. But the point is that this description of knee would give you no clue. If you were my therapist, how would you take any of that and figure out from that what my dream meant? But I'm sure
it take you to process that.
That was my dream. But the point is that this description of knee would give you no clue. If you were my therapist, how would you take any of that and figure out from that what my dream meant? But I'm sure
it take you to process that, to come up with that?
Oh, not long, because I'm used to doing it, and I do write down my dreams, or at least I write them down when I get enough psychic energy going to do it.
That's really a good interpretation. That's really interesting.
Okay, I mean when I try to do it, but sometimes when I wake up from having a dream, I just can't build up the will to sit down at a desk and write down what was in this dream. I try to do it by not turning on lights in the house and that sort of thing, or keeping things. I turn on a light in the hall just so I can see enough to write, so that I don't wipe the dream out. But dreams are really telling us something. Okay, that they're a way of our unconscious mind communicating to us. They aren't the trash of the day necessarily. I mean, I suppose they could be that, but our unconscious is at work all the time. I mean, the stomach acid in your stomach comes because your unconscious mind is telling your body to produce it, and if it's not, and that's true of all the billions of cells in your body. They're all produced unconsciously, and so the interstice between the boundary between the unconscious and the conscious is where the unconscious is trying to tell you something. And what Dr. Jung later says is that all religions originally come from either dreams or visions. So I never had really consciously grokked that until fairly recently, when I started to read a couple of Bible passages and realized that these things came from dreams, and it says so explicitly in the Bible. And I give you an example of Abraham and Isaac. Okay, Abraham's vision to sacrifice the goat instead of his son, Isaac, came from a vision that he had. He was having obviously a very emotional moment on the mountain, having taken his son up to sacrifice him. And obviously that was great emotion. And so he had a vision, and the vision was the escape. And that was the moment when humanity stepped away from human sacrifice. Because up until then, there was a lot of human sacrifice. And after that, it was okay for, at least for the three Abrahamic religions, to not sacrifice a child, but rather sacrifice a goat. One of the things that both Dr. Freud and Dr. Jung spoke about was the 2 million-year-old man. Okay, that there is this ground consciousness that comes up from our ancestors. And so I'll give you 2 examples of dreams I personally had, and at least one of them I'm sure all of you can relate to. But when I was about 5 years old, I had a dream that I woke up and looked out my window and I saw Tyrannosaurus Rex. Okay, and at that age I had never seen Tyrannosaurus Rex. There was no popularity of dinosaurs at that time. And so I had no experience with Tyrannosaurus rex at that point, but I looked out my window and I could see high above me, 40 or 50 feet above me, the head of Tyrannosaurus rex. And, you know, it scared the hell out of me. And I screamed, but then I woke up and my mom said, "Oh no, it's not here." But that memory is obviously a memory that we have coming down for millions of years in some way. And of course, Tyrannosaurus rex predated human beings by 60 million years. So that must be a memory that comes from even, you know, our very little ancestors, not even human ancestors. And the other dream that I'm sure, or not dream maybe, but I'm sure all of you have had the experience of waking up feeling like you're falling. Um, and you wake up with a start and you feel like you're falling. And obviously that's a remnant from our ape predecessors, okay, because they were living in trees to stay safe, and they had to have this reflex to wake up if they were losing their balance in the branches.